Hello, everyone, and welcome to our huge conference. One second, let's everyone join us. Okay, so as far as I see, there are about 80 people right now. While we are waiting for others to join, can you please let me know if you are here? Let me know where are you from, listening to us, and what are your expectations about this? Any things that you are specifically concerned about? You can leave the comments, questions, etc. No, okay, Alexander. So you can leave any comments, any questions, and we'll be happy to answer them later. So let's start. So I know that with these Google and Yahoo updates, only the lazy did not make any webinar or workshop about it. Even we already did it, but still, nevertheless, it's never too bad to listen to one or more sources of information, especially when we have so many speakers ahead whose expertise covers different fields. Thank you, everyone, for being active. Thanks. And quick notes. First, we are going to select the most active person in comments, anyone who will be asking more questions, being proactively. We're going to send a prize to this person. So in the end of the stream, I'm going to select this person, and from our side, we will contact this person and give a present. Also, we will, of course, send you the recording of this webinar because this is the top question at every stream, and the links to this site. Also, feel free to subscribe to our channel because here we really put a lot of efforts into the content we publish here, and we try to ease your life as much as possible. Yes, so let's move to the structure of our conference. So the first part, here, me and Angelina, my colleague from Deliverability team, we are going to discuss fundamental things because even though this topic is very discussed during the last months, we still have a lot of questions from customers. So we're going to try to cover as much as possible from basics. And we are going to answer some questions. After that section, our customer success team joins the webinar, and they will be discussing how to keep your spam complaint rate below the current percentage. But they will speak less technical things. They will discuss less technical things. They will cover from their perspective how to improve your situation and reduce risks. And in the third section, our speakers will join the conference, and I'm gonna ask them questions, very painful questions, and they will be happy to share their knowledge. Okay, so let's move to this slide. Represents us, but I have already shared who we are. So let's move to the structure of our first section. We're going to briefly discuss those updates. I know that a lot of you have already heard about it, but still key points I will mention. Then I will again explain what is the domain rating and spam threshold. Then Angelina joins us, and she will speak about all these difficult technical stuff like DKIM, DMARC, SPF, all that. and she will assist you with the information about tools on how to track your email health, because this is one of the top questions people typically ask, and email blacklist monitoring. Do you need to monitor your domain, your IP addresses, what email blacklists are the most critical ones? And the last here is how Reply helps businesses with deliverability. So let's go. Gmail and Yahoo updates. I would say that eventually it all looks like a storm in a teacup. So let's do a quick checkup on key points to sum up what we already know. So generally, it was said that you need to follow best practices Gmail asks you to do, and Yahoo by February 1st, 2024. But on the next slide, I will show you the timeline they have published. So it doesn't mean that starting from today, you will be punished for your outreach. No. Who this concerns? Generally, I would say it concerns all senders, but they specifically point attention to bulk senders. Who is bulk senders here? You are considered as a bulk sender if you send from your domain, one domain, more than 5K emails to recipients who use free Gmail accounts. So this is very important. If you send emails to business domains who use, for example, Google Workspace, that's fine. You're not considered as a bulk sender. So be very attentive. This is a key point. It only counts if you send to free Gmail accounts. And here is the promised timeline. So gradual and progressive reinforcement for bulk senders. So by February 2024, bulk senders who do not meet senders' requirements will start getting temporary errors with particular error codes on small percentage for their non-compliant email traffic. And these temporary errors are meant to help senders identify email traffic that does not meet Gmail guidelines, so that senders can resolve the issue. By April, Gmail starts rejecting a percentage of non-compliant email traffic and gradually increases the rejection rate. For example, if 75% of senders' traffic meets their requirements, they will start rejecting a percentage of the remaining 25% of traffic that isn't compliant. And by June, bulk senders have to implement one-click unsubscribe in all commercial and promotional messages. So it's fine if you don't have that now. There is a question about 5K. I'll probably answer right now. So it's considered per day, not per week, not per month, per day. New requirements, key points. So if previously you have heard that there are recommendations to set up SPF, DKIM, DMARC records, yes, but right now this is mandatory. You need to have this set up. Moreover, I strongly recommend you to have all these 3 records set up, because it's very important. If any of your records fail, you will have your second record that will cover your domain at this point. So what about one-click unsubscribe? So right now it's needed only for bulk senders, and you remember the criteria here, and only for marketing messages. That thin line, what is the marketing and what is the promotional email, and is your message considered as a marketing or promotional email, we'll discuss later in panel discussion, because this is something that I see very often when people ask if my message is considered as marketing or promotional. If you use transactional emails, no, you do not need to use list and subscribe header. And speaking about difference, if you have an opt-out link in your body and list and subscribe header, do you need to have both, or that opt-out link in your body is enough? No, that link is not enough. So if you're a bulk sender and you are doing promotional emails, you need to add specific list and subscribe header into header. You can contact your tool, support of your tool that you are using, who can assist you with that. Yeah, so the next section of requirements refers to Settings like PTR record, TLS, this refers more to cases when you use your own mail server, because most popular mail providers, they do cover these questions. As for spam rates, so generally it's your spam complaint rate should not exceed 0.3%, and it's better to keep it about 0.1, which seems to be very, very small percentage. Next, there are particular recommendations about format standards. Again, it's if you use your mail provider, which most popular mail providers, if you use a tool, most likely people already taken care of this and you don't have to do it on your own. This refers also to the requirement not to impersonate Gmail from headers. And of course, Gmail publishes their best practices that they strongly recommend to follow. And if you have any further issues with deliverability being considered as a bulk sender, they will ask you to follow all the best practices, and only then you will have an option to contact them and possibly resolve the issues you can face. So, speaking about general best practices, it's very important that you increase your send-in volumes. Why? Because even if you have an old domain, but you haven't used any tool to send cold emails or send warm emails, whatever, if you suddenly start increasing your send-in volumes, that will be super suspicious for your mail provider, and most likely you will be either blocked or you will get into spam. So it's important to gradually ramp up your send-in volumes. When you reach your final volume, try to send emails at consistent rates, so avoid like spikes in your send-in process. Also, try, if you do changes in your send-in infrastructure or your email text or your header, increase those modified segments of traffic separately and slowly. Do not like push the new type of traffic immediately and at high volume. Also, messages of the same category should have the same from email address. For example, you send transactional emails, you send like commercial emails, and you send some kind of like private emails between you and people you know. It's better to use the separate from addresses and keep it like that, because this is important. Also, do not mark internal messages as spam. I personally think that this recommendation is very strange, because who will mark colleague's email as spam, except of probably cases when your colleague is very annoying. Anyway, just don't do it, because you will teach your mail provider to filter your colleague and yourself as spam. And use Postmaster to get information about emails you sent to Gmail users. I will give you more details about Postmaster later. So let's go back to the question of spam complaint rate. There is always a confusion between spam rate and spam complaint rate. Spam complaint rate is not the number of emails that were delivered to spam. It's the number of emails that were marked by your recipients as spam. So your prospects, they mark your emails as spam, and the technology called feedback loop forwards the information about it to email service providers. Most email providers, they support this technology, but some of them, Gmail in particular, do not offer traditional feedback loops, so it's impossible to know who specifically has marked your messages as spam at Gmail. And it's been said that your spam complaint rate should be less than 0.1, definitely no more than 0.3. But a few things to note here. So it's not a new requirement. This requirement has been live before. And this is general recommendation across industry for all times. So it doesn't mean if you're allowed to to have high level of complaints now, and before you were allowed to. No, it's not like that. And also you need to understand that you will not be punished for high spam complaint rate if you're doing everything fine. I mean, if you're a good sender and in all aspects you're doing great, and suddenly you face the spam complaint threshold, no, you will not be punished, most likely. Yeah, and how to monitor that spam complaint rate. I mentioned Google Postmaster tool. So first, if you use tools like, for example, Active Campaign or any tools that typically used for marketing purposes, they will most likely contain this inbuilt option of monitoring who marked your emails as spam. But if you don't use these tools, what you can do, you can connect your domain to Postmaster. Even if you do not use, if your domain is connected to different mail provider, for example, you own your domain, you use Office 365 to send emails, you still can use Postmaster tool. You'll just need to register any Gmail account to have like access to Postmaster tool, where you connect your domain. How you do it? You will be given, by Postmaster, you will be given a short TXT record to verify the ownership of domain. You go to your hosting website, open DNS records for your domain, and add TXT records there. Next, you need to understand that you will need to have enough traffic to show any statistics. So when you connect it, you will need to wait for at least 3 days, but probably about a week. And you need to send, if I'm not mistaken, more than 200 emails per day to get any statistics. Also, statistics for previous time when you didn't have Postmaster connected to your domain will not be shown. So do not expect to see previous statistics. You will see also only general rate for your domain without identification of traffic source. So if you use, for example, Reply, any other tool, you send direct emails, you will not be able, unfortunately, to track here which particular traffic is causing the problem. That is the drawback of this tool. But at least it will give you the brief understanding on what's going on and possible reasons of your issues. Also, Postmaster shows data for those emails that are authenticated with DKIM record. Angelina will speak more about DKIM records. And those emails that are sent to Gmail accounts, because it's Gmail tool. So now let's quickly cover the topic of domain setup, since it's the top 1 best practice. When you open any recommendations, they all start with how to configure your domain. You must configure your domain. Now, I'm gonna let Angelina speak, and I will be managing her.
I'll ask you to change slides for me only. So what is SPF, DKIM, and DMARC? These are 3 email authentication methods. Together, they help to prevent spammers and other unauthorized parties from using your domains and send emails on behalf of your domain. Each method has different aspects of email security and covering sender verification, content integrity, and policy enforcement. To set SPF, DKIM, and DMARC, it is necessary always to have access to your hosting website. Without the access, you can't change any of your DNS settings. Also, to set DKIM, you will need to have access to the mail server, and you will need to have admin access to your email server. So next slide, please, Olga. How to check if your domain settings are correct? There's a lot of ways how you can do it. First of all, you can send email from your email account to another mailbox and check the headers. So most email clients have an option to display the full version of your emails, including headers. And in the headers, you can see if your email pass SPF, DKIM, and DMARC check. Another option how you can check the domain settings is to use any public DNS tools. For example, MX Toolbox, Mail Tester that we usually use in Reply to check the domain settings for our customers. Another option, next slide, please. Another option to check domain settings is to use reply. If you navigate to the safety settings of your email account, you can see that there is a health check section. And if you see that some of your records are red, you can click on them and you will be redirected to the live chat where we can help you and guide you how to set domain settings. What are the risks? Next chat, please, Olga. And what are the main risks if your domain settings are not correct, if they're not set? First of all, your domain can be used for phishing and spoofing attack. Another important aspect, you may have problem with deliverability, such as low reply rate, low open rates, spam issues, and other problem. Also, you may have problem with bounces. For example, in the screen, you can see some examples of bounces that can happen when your domain settings are not set. You can understand this is happening just checking the bounces and understanding the code for the bounces. As usual, they say that there's some problem with SPF, DKIM, or DMARC. Let's talk about each of these settings. So what is SPF? SPF record identify all mail servers or IP addresses that can send emails on behalf of your domain. You should also know that domain can have only one SPF record. If you use a couple of mail servers, you will need to add them all to one SPF record, but you can't use 2, 3, or more than one SPF record at your DNS. How to know the SPF record that you need to use? So SPF record depends on your mail server. If you don't know your SPF, you can check support articles at your mail providers, or you can just contact your mail provider support and ask to provide a correct SPF record for you. Now let's move to DKIM. What is DKIM? So this is another domain setting. This is another option for domain settings, and it is a digital signature that is added to the header of your message. And it allows the receiver to verify that your domain is actually authorized. How to generate it and how to set DKIM. First of all, you need to understand that DKIM is always generated at the site of your mail provider. Then you will need to add it to your hosting website. Unlike to SPF record, the form of DKIM record is always different. It's not only TXT type or some other type. For example, for Google Workspace users, DKIM is configured as TXT type record. But if you use Office 365, probably your DKIM will be represented as 2 CNAME type records. Let's talk about DMARC. What is DMARC? DMARC indicates how receiving email server should handle emails that fail SPF and DKIM check. So, as usual, DMARC includes information such as enforcement policy, reporting address, and additional configuration options. And currently, there is 3 main DMARC policies that you can use: none, quarantine, and reject. Based on the recent updates, at least you need to have none policy. However, we highly recommend to use more strict DMARC policy for your security and to save your domain from any attacks and spoofing. And now let's talk about tools that you can use to track your email health. So there are a lot of tools and services that you can use to track your domain health, your campaigns, and monitor your deliverability. Here are some popular platforms that you can use to monitor your domain health. Previous slide, please.
Sorry.
No problem. So first tools, they are email deliverability platforms. They offer tools. They may offer tools for inbox placement tests, reputation monitoring tests, DNS settings, and other tests. Another tools that can help you to monitor your health is email authentication tools. They can help you with checking your domain settings and troubleshooting them if they're not correct, or if you have any issues with DNS. Another tools that you can use to maintain your sending reputation is validation tools. So validation tools can help you to check the quality of your prospects and ensure that you are sending emails to valid prospects, that they are up to date and they are not some bad prospects that can bounce back. As for the validation tools, the most popular one are Bouncer, Zero Bounce, Never Bounce, and other tools for validation. Also in reply, there is also validation tools that you can use to check the quality of your prospects. Another tool that you can use to monitor your health check is inbox placement tests. Such tools allow you to test your emails against different spam filters. They can also provide you an insight how likely your emails will be delivered to different mail providers. You can use Glockups, MailReach, and other common tools to check your inbox placement. Also, you can use customer feedbacks and survey tools. They can collect customer feedback and insight to understand the satisfaction of your emails and how actually prospects interact with your emails. And the last tool, we'll talk about is blacklist monitoring services. Here, I would like to give more details about it because it's very important and always requested by our customers. So what is actually a blacklist? A blacklist is a collection of domain or IP addresses that are blocked from sending emails because of their spam activity, because they were identified as spammer in the past times, or someone. So there are different kind of blacklists that you can find online. Email providers can have their own internal list, like Google, Outlook, and other providers. They can have their own internal list with the list of domains or IP addresses that they think they are dangerous. External blacklists run by security companies such as Proofpoint, for example, or Barracuda. And finally, those that managed by a non-profit organization. For example, Spamhaus is one of them. And how to understand that you are blacklisted? First of all, you can notice the sudden drop in open rates, in reply rates, or in your deliverability in general. Another option, you can start receiving some suspicious bounces with error or notification from blacklist. And what to do if you found yourself blacklisted? This is not the end of the world, you need to understand. But you need to think about what happened, what could be the reason why your domain was blacklisted. Did you make any changes to your content recently? Did you start using new templates, new links or images in your emails? Or maybe you bought a new list of contacts recently. You can also think if you change your sending strategy or you start using some new tools for email outreach. As for the most common reason why you can find yourself blacklisted are the spam complaints, poor list management together with high bounce rate, sending spam-like content, also issues with your domain settings and unusual sending behavior. And what to do if you find yourself blacklisted? First of all, there is a good news. You can always try to whitelist yourself. Most of blacklist providers have information available on their website about blacklist removal. The listing usually can be done via the link, or if you fill up the form, and you will be most probably whitelisted. Also, some blacklists remove you from the blacklist after some period of time, so it can be done without requesting. And let's talk about the option and how to avoid being blacklisted, actually. First of all, you need to keep your contact list up to date always and remove unengaged prospects if you see such. Don't send too many emails. Don't increase your sending amounts too fast. Always monitor your campaign metric closely. Take care of your sending reputation and avoid spam words, links, especially short links in your emails. In subject line as well. And also avoid purchasing a list of prospects. And if you do so, please validate them. But better not to do this because such list can have spam traps or some old email addresses that can hurt your sending reputation and cause a lot of problems for you and for your domain. That's all from my side for now, Olga.
Okay, thank you very much for that technical things, something that puzzles people a lot. The last topic in the section that I'm going to cover is how Reply helps businesses with deliverability. It's not only about listening to your pain and problems and doing emotional support from our side. No, we do some other things. So from technical side, technical stuff. First, what we are going to do is we are going to integrate Google Postmaster inside Reply. I know that you can generally go to Postmaster separately and do it, but if you have everything in one place, it can be a bit more easy for you to manage and to control, because sometimes I forget to go to Postmaster and check it there. When you have it in Reply, it's good. Then improvement of email authentication checkups inside Reply. For those who are here Reply users, you know that inside Reply, when you connect your email account, you up of your domain settings, and sometimes it's impossible. So this checkup was rather simple, and sometimes it's impossible to check particular things like PTR record or DKIM record. And what we're going to release very soon is improvement of that tool. I'll show it a bit later. And generally, we're going to change the structure of email accounts page to make it a bit more actually structured. Probably this is the best word to use here. And next, in the field of cooperation, education, and staff, in particular, first we are going to extend deliverability department with highly qualified specialists to cover as more painful questions from our customers as possible. We also do our best to educate customers and to provide the full assistance both from customer success department and deliverability side, because typically when you have deliverability issues, it's not only broken SPF or broken DKIM. I mean, yes, this is something that you need to check first and fix first if you have the problem, but generally, it's the combination of different factors that impacted and dropped down your sending reputation. That's why we need to handle it from different sides. Also, here is the screenshot of how integration of Postmaster is going to look in Reply. So for each domain, you will have a separate section where you will see your email accounts that belong to this domain. You will see the section domain setup, mailboxes, and spam monitoring. Everything will be right near your email addresses. And here are two examples of good SPA, good domain setup and domain setup with things and issues. So if you see any issues, you will need to click on the issue, and again, you will be redirected to me and Angelina. And when we are back on the shift, we will be very happy to assist you. So that's basically all from my side. Now, thank you everyone for the questions. I'm gonna start answering them. So the first question I would like to discuss is from Steven. So if you work up to a high volume, should you try and stay there? And if you take a break on a holiday, should you ramp up back? So speaking about first part of this question, there is a recommendation to try and keep your traffic in a steady volume. So when you have reached your maximum, try to keep it. But I would here recommend you to monitor your rates. If you notice that you have drop in open rates, drop in reply rates, some other issues, it makes sense to start reducing your traffic, because if you, for example, started to fall into spam, it makes no sense to shoot out a lot of emails. First, you will spoil your recipients list, your prospect list. Second, you will worsen your situation. So be careful and monitor your rates. As for break on holidays, should you ramp up back? I would personally increase my sending volume slowly, because of course if we're speaking about a couple of days, that's fine. But if we're speaking about a week of holidays, if you used to send, for example, 400 emails, and if you come back with the same volume, most likely first you get your account blocked, because both Gmail and Office 365, they are super sensitive at any suspicious activity in your account. So that would be suspicious. And this is typically what I expect after holidays when we work in reply. So this is okay if after holidays we see some accounts being blocked, suddenly spam issues appeared, that's normal. Next, there was a very good question about ARC record. This is something that is mentioned in Gmail recommendations, but something that is rarely covered. How it works. So this particular record is needed when you either use intermediate server to transfer your emails, or when you forward your emails. Because when your emails are forwarded, your DKIM fails and your SPF fails. And when DKIM and SPF fail, DMARC will fail too. So if you do not use ARC record, emails are at risk. This record will help you to combat it. But here is the thing, you as a single user of, for example, Gmail, you don't have to do it on your own. It's typically something that is adjusted from either your mail provider side or intermediate server that you are using. The next question, Adish, thank you for several questions too. What I mean under list unsubscribe header. For some reasons, I did not include this into my slides because I thought I need to do it. When you open any marketing email you receive, at the top, you will see a gray word unsubscribe. So this is basically that header. It's inside the email header, and you see it as a final user, as a recipient. You see it at the top, you click, and you easily unsubscribe without scrolling down to the bottom. Next question, again from Adish, would you recommend creating multiple domains? That question I will leave to the end of our webinar. There will be a panel discussion, and this is something I want our speakers to ask, how to manage, how to organize your outreach in terms of that limits right now. Also, validation tool, a question about validation tools. Some contacts are often returned as risky. Are those fair game to be used? So with risky prospects, it's a game like 50-50. They can bounce or they cannot bounce. So at some point, email validation tools, they didn't get accurate result about the status of this particular email. That's why they can't give you this result. Obviously, you need to guess. What you can do is you can first evaluate generally your list. If you see that not many emails bounce, that it's rather up-to-date list, you can try to send emails to those risky prospects, and you'd better monitor your bounce rate. So if you see that it suddenly increases, try to check bounce reason and identify. If you see that risky prospects appear to be invalid, okay, stop and do not add risky prospects. If they're working properly, yes, why not? You can continue. I think this is very also important to touch the question of bounces, because we didn't pay a lot of attention to it. And those updates, they do not again, also point attention to it, but try to keep your bounce rate below 5%. I know that sounds difficult, but it's very important. And when you work with bounces, what you need to do, if you see that you have increment of in bounce rate, go and read what's written inside bounces, where to find it. If you use reply, you can do it inside reply, but generally you receive those bounce back messages to your mailbox. And it's very, very important that you check those bounces and do not delete without checking it, because there are plenty of different reasons why your emails can bounce. And it can be invalid email, or you can be rejected because of spam and all this stuff. So yes, so this is very important that you check. For those people whose questions I was not able to answer, I will try to get back to you in the comments section. And right now it's time to switch to our second section. Our speakers are already here. So Stephanie, Joshua, welcome, our beautiful, fantastic customer success team, customer care team. I prefer to say it like that. Joshua, probably you can start. Yeah.
Well, I can quickly start. So for those of you who don't know us, I'm Stephanie. I'm the director of our client success team here at Reply, and this is Josh. He's one of our senior client success managers. He's also our content specialist. So, later on, he's going to talk about some content best practices. And what we really want to chat about today is really how to keep your spam rate below 0.3%. So just a bit of background about both of us. Josh and I have both been with the company for almost 8 years. And, as much as we can, talk to our customers about content and strategy and things like that, we've all realized that deliverability is so important, because you can spend all that time, getting your sequences ready to go and looking at your contacts and doing all that research. But if your emails are not getting delivered, all that work kind of goes down the drain. So, our deliverability team, they've been working hard over the last few years, and they've built such a great team. So we're really happy and proud of them. So Josh is going to kind of kick it off by talking about some settings in your reply account that you should really pay attention to, just to ensure that your emails don't go to spam. I will be talking about warming up your email accounts. We'll be talking about your contact list hygiene, and then Josh is going to finish it off with some really good information about content and really what to look out for when you're creating that content, again, to keep your spam rate low. So Josh, take it away.
Absolutely. Let me share my screen. Oh.
Sorry, really quickly, guys. This is the first time Josh and I have used StreamYard. We always use Zoom when we run our webinars with our clients. So maybe a bit of a technical issue right here.
Yeah, Stephanie, can you share your screen? It's not letting me for some reason.
Let me check. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, it's asking me to do an entire system reboot. I would prefer to avoid that.
Okay, let me check.
The downside of using a bunch of different streaming services.
Okay, let me check.
My apologies, guys. I may be able to hop back in. I might have to leave. Just give me 1 second here.
Here, let me try on my side.
Okay.
Ooh.
Is it asking you to? There we go. Perfect.
Perfect.
All right. Apologies for that, guys. I do know what I'm talking about, but this is about deliverability, not about screen shares.
There you go.
So yeah, this is essentially where I was going to show you guys. There are a couple of key areas that you want to look at in your reply accounts in order to optimize your deliverability. Let's start, Stephanie, by clicking into the email accounts section on the left-hand side. And then this is going to bring you to your email addresses that you have connected. You can click inside of one of the emails. The process should be pretty similar across the board. Once you're in here, Olga and Angelina may have already alluded to some of these other bubbles that will pop up under email accounts health. But what we want to focus on right now, if you scroll down a little bit more, are the safety settings. So let's click into safety settings. And the idea behind optimal deliverability is going to be consistency. You want to try to either steadily increase your number of sends on a steady flow, or you want to remain at a pretty consistent plateau. You want to avoid big spikes in activity as often as possible, because that's what kind of sends red flags over to the email provider side, which will ultimately result in deliverability issues. So the first thing you're going to want to do is enable the daily ramp up. So all you need to do is click into your email address, toggle this guy on here, and the starting values by default are consistently best practice. Your starting value should be within 50 emails per day, 50. You typically don't want to increase that higher, because most warm-up tools typically ramp you up to that 50 emails per day kind of area, and your ramp up value should be 10 or lower. And essentially, we will start sending 40 to 50 emails per day. Once we hit our cap for day 1, tomorrow we'll increase that number to 50, the following day 60, and so on and so forth until you hit whatever total number of emails you've set up at the top. 400 is our reply limit, but we do recommend probably stopping at a lower number. Having worked with a number of different clients and a number of different use cases over the years, Google in particular tends to cause issues around the 200 mark. So we do recommend in general a more kind of streamlined approach. You really want to narrow down your customer profile and target an audience as opposed to casting a very wide net. But this daily ramp up option will get you from a relatively low number of emails to a couple of hundred within a matter of weeks in a very consistent and safe manner. So as long as you're turning this on, a lot of your checkboxes are covered. Underneath the daily ramp up, we have the limit of emails sent per time duration. Traditionally, you always want to have this on. Reply does add variance to the sends based on your schedule already, but this is just an added layer of security, essentially, to avoid sending too many emails too quickly. Most people can't send more than one email every couple of minutes. So if you were to tell the system to send, let's say, for example, 5 emails in the span of 60 seconds, that's probably going to set off a red flag on the email provider side, which again could potentially lead to deliverability problems. So you do want to keep things relatively consistent, 1 email every minute at the worst. Typically, we recommend 1 email every 2 to 3 minutes, which is what I've added under my own settings here. You can opt for longer, but you do also want to take into consideration how many contacts you're planning on reaching out to on a daily basis and how long your schedule is actually open for. But in most scenarios, 1 email every 2 to 3 minutes tends to do a pretty good job of keeping your domains safe. Once you've got these 2 basic settings tuned, we can then go into our signature. Olga was alluding to some of these options a little bit in her last question section, but essentially, Reply does not automatically pull in signatures from your provider. So you do need to recreate them here. But when you're crafting your signatures, you want to make sure that you're not overloading them with a ton of HTML-based factors. The more images or hyperlinks that you're including in your content, including your signature, will have an impact on your deliverability score. Email providers are scanning your emails as you're sending them for content and legitimate links. So the more you have, the less likely you are to be deemed safe, especially if the people you're sending emails to have a heightened level of security on their own inboxes. Then begs the question, what am I supposed to do with all of my social links? I have a Twitter or X. I have a Facebook link, I have a LinkedIn, I've got a link to my website. What do I do with all those? I want people to interact with them. And the answer is you need to prioritize. You can add all of them, but in general, you're not only lowering deliverability from the sense that the HTML is going to give you a little bit of a hit, but you're also diluting what people are going to immediately want to interact with. Typically, and this is going to be a little bit more in-depth in the content practices, but you really want to narrow your focus down to what you want people to click on. If you have 5 to 7 different socials that you're all linking to, and all you're saying is, hey, do you want to hop on a phone call? You're not really prioritizing any one action item. And the plethora of choice tends to lead to kind of hesitation, and they don't end up clicking on anything. So as opposed to including all of them, really prioritize, do I want people to go to my homepage? Do I want people to go to my LinkedIn profile? And then really hone in on your messaging to draw attention to that one item rather than spread yourself across multiple. But in general, try to keep this as plain text as possible, because this does have a direct impact on where your emails are actually landing.
Yeah, and just really quickly, just to hop in here, I know for my email signature that I've been using for a very long time, I have one thumbnail image and I have a link to my calendar, and my email is linked. And that's all I've had for the last few years, and I haven't had any deliverability issues. So
yeah, it's all about kind of prioritizing and just maximizing. You're going to get better traction overall if more people are seeing your email rather than sending millions and nobody seeing any of them. So in the long run, you may really miss the fact that you have these items in your signature line or in the body of your actual emails. But at the end of the day, more people are going to see your content, more people are going to have the opportunity to interact with it. And I think that's ultimately going to achieve better results than cramming everything that you possibly can into your signature. But after the signature section, we do have the opt-out text. This has been a kind of little controversial opinion. There have been recent changes on the email landscape. And originally, unsubscribe via plain text was the way to go. It looked more organic. There wasn't anything that people had to click on inherently. And it allowed your emails to just look like a more manually sent message. These days, with the new kind of laws around email practice, unsubscribe via opt-out link is going to be your best bet for a couple of reasons. It does include an HTML-based factor. It is a tracking link, but when you're sending an email with the unsubscribe link, a lot of larger platforms and more established domains require some form of immediate opt-out method in order to actually access their inbox. So if you don't have an opt-out link, you're immediately kind of exempt from entering. In addition to that, you have to think about manual spam rate. So if I'm sending, let's say, 100 emails, I do not have any form of direct opt-out method, the likelihood of someone maybe being upset or just wants to ignore my emails, they click on the spam button. That's infinitely worse than if they were to click on the unsubscribe link, because when somebody manually marks you as spam, you're now being kind of added on the email provider side to a blacklist of sorts. And the more you get marked as spam, the more issues you're going to experience with entering primary inbox folders. If you give people the opportunity to use an opt-out link, you're not added to that. They're just removing themselves from your list, and there's no actual harm done on the domain side. So even though your message does look more like a sales or marketing piece, you're saving your domain at large by removing the possibility, not completely, but majority of options to mark you as spam. So you do want to include the opt-out link in almost all cases, unless you're using a opt-in style sequence where people are expecting these messages. For example, Stephanie and I use this for onboarding and client success purposes, so they are expecting our messages. Therefore, we probably wouldn't want to give people the opt-out link because they're going to miss out on a lot of key content and best practices that we're going to share with them.
Yes, so always open our emails is what he's saying.
Exactly. We have to
and
do
Josh,
a little bit of a plug as well.
exactly. And Josh, really quickly, you know, for that use case that you just mentioned, and so in that case where, you know, people would rather use the plain text option, do you just want to kind of quickly talk about this option right here? Because we see this regenerate option right here.
Yes. So the way that the unsubscribe via plain text works is there will be this piece of text in smaller font underneath your signature. The text itself doesn't actually do anything. It is just a kind of reminder that if they do respond, they will be opted out of your list. Specifically, if they say something along the lines of stop emailing me, unsubscribe, remove me from your list, or a more vulgar version of those. The regenerate option is a kind of system through ChatGPT and JSON AI where it will automatically kind of alter the text in order to make it sound a little bit more organic, which is a little ironic to say. But from a functionality point, you can regenerate the text as often as you'd like. You can even technically remove it, though we would not recommend it. As this is a deliverability focused webinar, we do, if you aren't using the opt-out link and you are going with the unsubscribe via plain text method, we do recommend you have something here because depending on where your prospects are located, spam legislation can differ quite a bit. And you always want to hedge your bets and have something here in order to fall back on if, for whatever reason, a complaint were to go through. You have a clear method indicating that there is some form of opt-out in your actual message.
I'm actually a fan of the wanting to get off the carousel. I like that one.
Yeah, and the message here doesn't have to be something super professional. You can make it sound like whatever you'd want. So you can match the tone to whatever the actual body of your message establishes. Whatever you write here does not actually have an impact on where your emails land. It's more about if you were to use a link or the other kind of social tags in the signature that are going to have a larger impact than the opt-out text here. The next section, as far as settings are concerned, is actually located in your emails. So if you go to the email section on the left, there are a couple of points here, specifically in email safety, that you also want to take into consideration. So we already talked about how there's inherent variance to our sends, and you can add even more security by limiting the number of emails you can send per minute. Specifically, the delay before sending the first email and max daily emails per contact. These are more kind of nuance that you can add on the back end to help make your emails look more genuine. Max daily emails per contact is pretty self-explanatory. The number of times you can hit a contact in your sequences per 24 hours. Unless you have a very unique use case and you want to kind of double up on a send and follow up immediately, you probably don't ever want to send more than one email to a contact per day outside of a traditional conversation.
I feel like that's a surefire way of getting someone to probably report you as spam if they're just getting inundated.
Yeah, exactly.
Throughout the day.
We're going to talk more about that in the content side of things in a little bit. But yeah, you want to be as respectful of your prospect's time and inbox as possible. In a lot of cases, you're using these for sales reasons. They didn't ask for these messages. They don't know who you are. If you suddenly show up 2 to 5 times in their inbox, they're going to start questioning why you're even there and not even read your message. They're just going to kind of hit that spam button.
Yep.
Yeah, and then you're done. So you want to make sure that you're being as respectful as possible, limiting this to 1 email per day, just so you're not stepping on the toes of any active conversations, and allowing your prospects to digest the content that you've already sent them, and then you can follow up in a day or 2. Then we have the delay before sending the first email. This is not as integral as the other emails per minute option, but this does add another layer of variance and adding to that manual nature of the sends. By default, this is going to be set to 30. I typically don't see a reason to change this unless you have a very strict kind of schedule that you want to abide by in your actual sequence settings. But in most cases, the variance, the natural variance that reply includes, is going to kind of offset this. So you can increase this. Again, the more time between each email that you send, the better you're going to be deliverability-wise. But 30 seconds is a traditionally good option, so you don't need to change this if you don't want to. The last section for this particular setting, if you just scroll down to the BCC option. So everybody knows what CC and BCC is. We do have a global BCC option available. I would only recommend using these in the case of trying to track emails or activity for an integration. If you have a CRM and you want to track all that activity over there, BCCing is an option if we don't have the native integration available under the execution tab. Adding a BCC, regardless of what that email is, can impact deliverability. So if you're kind of trying to forward all of your emails to one kind of merged inbox because you're working on behalf of your sales team, you're probably better off setting up forwarding options in the emails themselves rather than using a BCC. By adding that BCC, you are now attaching another entity to all of your outgoing messages, which will act similarly to the extraneous HTML-based factors. It will lower your ability to land in the primary inbox folder. So BCC is primarily for integration use only. Anything else can probably be covered by an email forwarding on the email provider side.
All right. Thanks, Josh. I'm just looking at the time. So we have about 25 more minutes to get through the rest of what we want to talk about. Normally when Josh and I do these sessions, we tend to go for a whole hour or if not more. And so we have 45 minutes today. So we really want to be respectful of everyone's time today. So Josh, if you don't mind, I'm going to hop in. I'm going to start talking about warm up. So I will just stop sharing my screen.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And Olga, I believe Olga is kind of in the background. Hey, Olga. Olga's going to help me with some of the slides that I have prepared. So yeah, we're going to talk about warming up your email accounts. There's two ways that you can do this. And warming up your email accounts, and Josh kind of alluded to it a bit when he talked about ramp up mode and whatnot, really, really important for your outreach. You know, there's really two times when warm up is going to be really important. The first one being if you're using a brand new email address or a new domain. Like Josh mentioned, you know, anytime your email provider sees abnormal spikes, they have algorithms set up which detect those spikes and could potentially red flag your email, your domain as potential spam. So that's really what we want to avoid. The second time or kind of use case where you would use warm up would be if you maybe took a small break from outreach, for example. So maybe you took, you know, maybe 2 months, you're kind of, you know, looking at your content, looking at your contact list, and maybe just looking at your strategy. It's always a good idea to kind of warm up your email account or just kind of maintain that sending reputation that you already built up in the past. So again, there's two ways that you can warm up your email accounts. You can do it manually. So I know Josh just kind of quickly went over these settings, so I'm not going to go into them again. But like Josh said, you know, slowly, you know, starting at maybe 40 emails per day and slowly working your way up. And like Josh mentioned, you can use that daily ramp up mode. That's always a good idea. And the emails per minute is a great idea as well. You know, there are some automatic tools, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But before these kind of automatic warm-up tools came out, what we used to do here at Reply, and I remember Olga and I doing it together, if we were trying to warm up a new email account, we would send emails to each other. So, you know, sending emails to coworkers, you know, friends, family, and really just asking them to open that email and then respond to that email. And more importantly, if that email maybe, you know, don't mark it as spam. If it goes into a promotions tab, move it to a main inbox. So it's all very manual, but that's something that you could do during that manual warm-up process. So Olga, if you want to switch to the next slide, perfect. So like I mentioned, there are some automatic tools out there that are going to warm up your email accounts for you. So it's going to be running in the background. You really don't have to do very much other than the initial setup. So one of those tools is MailToaster. So this is a company that we partner with, and MailToaster is going to automatically increase your daily limits while your emails land in the primary inbox of the recipient. So it is a peer-to-peer network. So for everyone who is signed up for MailToaster, for example, MailToaster will send emails amongst that group of participants. MailToaster will ensure that those emails are delivered to the main inbox. And as you can see right here, I just kind of included a quick screenshot of where the emails are landing for one of our test accounts. So you can see right here, we have 521 emails that have been sent, and they're all landing in that inbox. So you can really see where those emails are landing. One of the important things to remember is if you are setting up warm up via MailToaster, create an inbox filter in your email account. This will ensure that all of those warm up emails that are going amongst that peer-to-peer network are going into that folder, so it doesn't kind of clog up your main inbox. I know when I started using a warm up tool years ago, a lot of those emails were coming to my main inbox, and I had a bit of trouble differentiating between the warm up emails and the regular emails. So yeah, just create an inbox filter. It takes 2 seconds in your email account settings, and you should be good to go there. Olga, if you want to head on over to the next slide. Perfect. So like I mentioned before, there are 2 times when you should be using warm up. So we can see right here within MailToaster, we have the option. So this current profile is set to reputation protect. So what that means is this email account has already been warmed up, but MailToaster is still working in the background and sending those warm up emails, making sure they're going to inboxes. If they land in spam folders, removing them. To maintain that sending reputation that you've worked so hard to build up. There's also new email accounts. So again, this would be the option if you are starting from scratch with a new email account that you haven't been sending high volumes from, or a new domain. And as you can see right here, very similar to what Josh showed you in the account settings, your email account settings, you can select your daily goal, you can select the increments and how much you want to increase on it per day. So you have all those options in MailToaster as well. Olga or Josh, anything that you guys want to add about warm up or the importance of warm up? I mean, I feel like I can't stress it enough. I feel like this is extremely important and one of those things that you definitely should be doing before you start any type of outreach.
Yeah, I think you never want to just take a brand new domain and then start sending it to hundreds of prospects. You're pretty much guaranteeing that the domain is going to get burned rather quickly. So whatever method that you plan on using, whether it be through a warm-up tool or using a daily ramp-up or doing it manually yourself, you want to start low and steadily increase those numbers to ensure that your email domain just has a history of consistency of growth, and you probably want that level of engagement. If you kind of start and send a bunch of cold emails, you may not get the type of engagement that you're looking for. People may ignore your content, or people just may not be interested because your list hasn't been kind of tuned well enough. So using a warm-up system gets that kind of history under the domain, and if you're not getting the traction in your main sequences, the warm-up tools can kind of offset any negativity from there.
I would probably add here the comment regarding general domain preparation, because a lot of deliverability specialists really recommend you to keep your domain like waiting for a very long period, like several months, up to 3 months. And I know that sounds very, very painful for those who want to start outreach yesterday. And it's very difficult to be patient. But probably if you are considering that you have any risks of going into spam with the domain you are using now, and you potentially can switch your domains, you can start preparing your second domain now so that it stays quiet. When you are ready to start, you can like a bit warm it up, and that would be a good strategy.
Yeah. And I think to your point, Olga, I think it's really important. I know a lot of times, people are really excited to, start their outreach, and they're really eager to get going. And what we really stress to our clients is, from a deliverability perspective, from an engagement perspective, it's just so important that you put the work in ahead of time before you hit go on that sequence. It's definitely going to help with your deliverability. In this case, utilizing a warm-up tool, for example, and really taking that time to properly warm up your account, but also from an engagement perspective as well. So I think this is a good segue into what I'm going to talk about next. Yeah, are you reaching out to the right people? This is going to have such a big impact on your deliverability and your engagement, and this is something that we talk about all the time. So really, there are three things that you want to consider. Has your contact information been validated? This is so important, making sure that the people you are reaching out to, the email addresses that you have, the contact data that you have, it's valid and it's up to date. This is going to go a long way to mitigate your bounce rate. We have seen this happen in the past. We've seen people who aren't validating those contacts, and their bounce rates tend to shoot up really fast. Once they start validating, it comes down quite a bit and then levels off. So really making sure that you are validating that contact information. Again, it's going to be one of those key pieces that you should have on your checklist before you hit go on your sequence, before you upload your contacts. We have native email validation within Reply. It's so simple to use. You just select the contacts that you want to validate, you hit validate, and there's going to be three statuses that come back. So if you see a green check mark beside a contact, that means that email is valid and you're good to go. If you see a red X beside that contact, it means that email is invalid. And the nice thing about Reply is that if a contact has been deemed invalid with that red X, you don't have to worry about deleting from the account. We just won't send emails to that contact who has been deemed as invalid. And then the third is a gray exclamation point. And so that means that contact has been deemed as risky. So what we have found that with that risky status, there's about an 80% chance that email will go through. I've seen risky contacts, emails been delivered, multiple opens and replies coming from those risky contacts, but I've also seen them bounce. So what we recommend is that if you do validate a list, or when you validate your list, if you have maybe 200 risky contacts, slowly move maybe 10 or 15 into the sequence at a time, see how they perform, and then maybe add another batch a week later. And the reason we recommend this is just in case they bounce, if you add all 200 at the same time, that bounce rate is going to go up really, really fast. So, validating your contact data, key thing that you want to make sure you're doing before you hit go on that sequence. Another thing that you really want to consider is, have you defined your ideal customer persona or the decision makers, or really taking a look at the people that you want to reach out to. We refer to a method called spray and pray, and I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but when we say spray and pray, it's like, when people take a contact list of maybe 2,000 people and they just put them onto a sequence and they hit go. Really taking the time to look at that list and look to say, okay, you know what, how can I segment this list of contacts? Am I reaching out to the right people? Am I reaching out to a decision maker who is going to see that email that I'm getting and say, hey, you know what, this is an email that, I want to respond to, that I'm not going to mark as spam because it resonates with them. They can kind of see, why you're sending that email to them. If you're reaching out to someone for a sales purpose and you have someone on your list who works in HR or marketing, it's probably not going to resonate them, and they'll probably don't mark it as spam. So really taking the time to segment your list, look who those decision makers are, or just look to, make sure that you're reaching out to that right audience. And then, are you tailoring and personalizing your content to those decision makers or those ICPs? So once you've taken your list and you said, hey, you know what, I have these 2,000 contacts, but these are, the 80 that I really think are going to be, more engaged with this. They're going to be the ones that will make the decision, or are really going to be interested in what I'm sending to them. Make sure you're tailoring and personalizing that content to them. And Josh is going to kind of talk about it in a couple of minutes, so I don't want to talk about it too much. But are you utilizing variables? Are you using custom variables there? What does that look like for those ICPs that you've identified? And again, we all want to hit go right away. We're all really eager to get that outreach going and to see those results coming in. But really taking the time to look at these 3 factors in terms of your contacts is going to be extremely important. It's going to get you better engagement, but it's also going to increase your deliverability and reduce the amount of people who are potentially going to mark you as spam.
Absolutely. I think that's it really segues nicely into the content best practices. But if you're not reaching out to the people that are going to be most receptive to the content that you're writing, it doesn't matter. You can write a masterpiece of an email, but if you're sending it to people completely unrelated, it really doesn't matter. So this, I think, is the #1 aspect that most people don't actually take into consideration as much as they should. Even within even if within one industry, there are probably a number of different segments that you can pull and make small tweaks to your content to just make it, again, more resonating. If I were to get an email and it just doesn't speak to me, like this is like, it's not under my wheelhouse, somebody else on my team should do it, or it's just completely written in a tone that it kind of distances me from whoever sent me the message, I'm kind of checking out, right? Because emails are they're so prevalent in today's landscape. So you really want to hone in on who you're reaching out to and then customizing that message to those different groups.
So Josh, do you want me to go into your account? Are you planning on sharing your screen here?
I still can't unless I leave, but
no, I can do it for you. I can do it for you. Just let me know where I'm in the same account right now. Is there a sequence you want me to open for you?
Yeah, it's called Hello Viewers.
Hello Viewers.
It should be near the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is a pretty good time to kick into gear about content. And I don't want to take too much time, but there are a couple of key areas that you should pay attention to. Again, I'm going to harp on the HTML-based factors. When you are...
Sorry, Josh, really quickly, we have about 10 minutes. Just no pressure.
I'm not going to go on another rant.
I'm sorry, no pressure. You can speak.
There's just a countdown in the corner. It's great.
Yeah, I'll keep reminding you. Don't worry.
Perfect. I appreciate it. Yeah, so if you want to click in there, this first bit, there's nothing really to show, but again, it's just harping on the fact that you want to keep your HTML-based factors limited. So that includes anything from tracking to links to external sites, to images, attachments. And there is essentially a hierarchy of these elements. So for example, if you were to include one link, you're probably not in too much trouble, right? You want to send people to your calendar. You want to send people to your landing page. Those are all relevant calls to action, and you want to include them in your content. What you don't want to do is oversaturate your content with a ton of these things. Again, you're providing too many choices. You're leading them to kind of hesitate, and ultimately they may not want to engage. And the chances of you actually landing in the primary inbox folder, if you were to have, let's say, 3 links rather than 1, is actually quite sizable. So in general, choose what you want people to interact with the most and focus on that one item in your content when you are crafting your emails.
Yeah, and can I just hop in really quickly, Josh? I know I tell this story a lot, but just to kind of to add on to what Josh is mentioning about links. Years ago, we were sending out material via email to new customers that came on board, and we had multiple links in those emails, and we had really good intentions. We wanted to provide them with the information they needed to start their outreach and be successful. And then what I noticed in my account is that my open rate dropped quite dramatically. And when we ran some tests, we found that the people I was sending to who was using Gmails or email provider, those emails were going directly to their promotions tab. And when he was using Microsoft Office or ESP, it was going to their junk folders. So remove some of the links. Now I have 1 to 2, and there hasn't been an issue. My open rates have been great. Haven't had any issues with deliverability. So just a bit of an anecdotal story for you guys about why it's really important to limit the links that you have in those emails.
Yeah, and that's relevant. Again, like we spoke about it earlier, we're using we're sending emails to people that have opted in. They're expecting these. And doesn't matter. even if you overload the content to somebody that that you have established correspondence with, it's still possible to end up in the wrong folder. So regardless of whether you're using this for inbound or outbound, you want to make sure that you're paying attention to the number of things that you're sending to always get the most eyeballs. The second most important thing is variation. Underneath these steps here, you can see that I am running different A/B tests. One of the factors that email providers will look at is consistency, but also redundancy. If you're sending the exact same message to thousands of people over the course of weeks and months, they're going to pick up on that. So adding in any variants and changing up subject lines, trying out different styles of your actual body, that's all going to contribute to the longevity of your domain health. Even if it's just a small little tweak here and there, it's going to contribute to keeping your domain active for as long as possible. So if you have the ability to do so, throw on A/B tests. Try out different subject lines, because you're also diversifying and you're giving yourself access to more information. If you're throwing all of your eggs into a single basket and people just aren't reciprocating what you're sending out, you're burning that list. So by trying out different things, you're giving yourself access to more information, which you can then relay into changes later on in newer sequences with newer lists or the rest of your list. So with reply, you can add as many variants as you'd like. The system will automatically split the list as evenly as possible amongst those variants. And if you feel like one isn't performing, you can just pause it and it'll automatically funnel all of the remaining contacts down the version that you want to keep going. So there's really no harm in it. It's going to keep your domain healthier for that much longer, and it just gives yourself access to more information than you'd have otherwise. So highly recommended here. In addition to the variations, you also want to make sure that your subject lines are very easily kind of interpreted and they're resonating with the person you're sending it to. A lot of times I'll see people use very generic subject lines. Quick call, question for you.
Quick question.
Something along those lines. Yeah, it happens there's a ton of different variations, but all you're doing is you're playing into the curiosity game. And that's been happening for years. So people will know what you're doing, and it's more likely that they're not going to be curious. They're going to ignore it. And if you're getting manually marked as spam without getting any opens, that's going to have a detrimental impact on your domain health. So by including a more specific subject line relating directly to what you're going to do for your prospects, or even including something like the recipient's first name, you're now dedicating the email to the person receiving it. And they're far more likely to want to engage with something that's designed for them rather than some generic thing that's clearly being sent to hundreds of other people. So trying out these different variations and relaying information that's directly relevant to those prospects in your subject line is a great way to increase your open rate, as well as lower the spam rate of people marking you without even taking a second glance.
And Josh, just really quickly, so we touched on, multiple links in emails and kind of best practices around hyperlinks, just overall content, A/B testing, subject lines. What we didn't talk about yet, and we only have a couple minutes left, are the use of images in the emails that you're sending out.
Yeah, so earlier on I mentioned that there's a kind of hierarchy to the different HTML-based factors, links being kind of the lowest, technically tracking. But the bigger the element you include, the bigger of an impact there is going to be as far as deliverability concerns. Adding an image or embedding a video does sound like a pretty good way to capture interest. It's been a marketing tactic for years. But for cold outreach, specifically in sales, you really have to know who you're reaching out to in order to make that kind of style work, because by adding a massive image or embedding a video directly into your content, there's a very high chance that ends up in an updates or promotions. just inherently. So would you rather have people looking at your plain text email and reading the few sentences that you've provided, or are you going to chance it on recording a video that most people aren't ever going to see? There's a level and a balance of effort versus result. And especially when you're starting out, you really want to focus on the results. You don't want to take those unnecessary risks, especially with newer domains. So I would highly recommend avoiding things like images and attachments, especially in your first step to a fresh list. You want to kind of keep things very kind of low key, very basic. Focus on them, asking them questions about them to generate interest, draw attention to specific pain points, and that's where you're going to kind of generate the interest, and then you can capitalize that in a follow-up and potentially include your image, maybe like a graph or something to show kind of what your product or service will benefit them, or draw up a video in that follow-up that's in the same thread as your original message, which does lead me to the next point. You want to keep your emails threaded together as often as possible. This does a number of things for you. From a spam perspective, which is the main topic that we're talking about today, it just looks better. If you are getting an email from a random person that you didn't ask for, and it's all threaded in one nice location, it's much easier for you as the recipient to return to that information and kind of just relay and interact with it. Whereas if you were to send a bunch of one-offs, 5 individual emails, there's a high likelihood that people will get upset and then mark you as spam as well. So threading them together is typically your best option in most cases.
And really quickly, you can do that just the way Josh has done here. For your follow-up emails, just keep that subject line blank and they will automatically thread together.
We're getting the hook, so that's why Olga's popped up again.
Guys, it's time to pressure. Yeah, it's time to pressure because right now our speakers, they are already here and they are very welcome to jump in. So we'll first thank you very much, Stephanie and Joshua, for your information, for your expertise here. And it's not that your opinion doesn't matter. There's no matters, but still we will switch to our speakers again. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you for having us here.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Hello, everyone.
Hey.
Hey.
So
Can you hear me? Is my audio coming through okay?
Yes, all is good.
Okay, nice.
All is good. So we have been speaking with visitors for some time already. We had covered some like basics, fundamental, then our customer success team jumped and discussed things, and now time for panel discussion. So typically I do an intro where I present our speakers, but today I would really like to give you a word. And can you please make a small intro or introduce yourself? Who can be the first? Ladies first.
So hi, everybody. I'm Yana Tori. I'm a deliverability specialist for finally a decade. It's February. I work at Email Console, so we're all about simplifying and democratizing deliverability for all so that you guys can focus on sending emails and we can help you make sure that you land in the inbox.
Radek.
Benny? Okay.
Sorry.
Hey guys, I'm Radek. I'm CEO of Bouncer, and well, together with the amazing team, we've been creating email verification platform primarily for like 7-ish years already. But recently we also partnered with Email Console, with Jan Tori and the folks to also embed their platform inside ours. So we're kind of more into deliverability space in general, but still our main focus is email verification. And while doing that, I kind of learned a bit about email deliverability, but I don't consider myself as a deliverability expert like Jan Tori, for example. But
Thank you for having me. Humble, Radek. This is not time to be humble.
Just being transparent.
Yeah. My name is Benny Rubin. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Senders. And Senders, unlike Yanatori, we're entirely focused on cold email sending and deliverability. So the bad side, the non-opt-in side, the non-easy side, the hard side. That's where my team focuses all of our energy and effort. And we send a metric ton of emails. I think we sent maybe 30 million emails in the last 12 months across dozens and dozens of clients. So what happens when you send as many emails as we do is most of the one size fits all advice kind of goes away, and you start to get to one level deeper. I'm sure, Olga, it's the same with you as well, and everyone here, where you're sort of like, you should authenticate with DMARC, and like, what about on a subdomain? Okay, good question. Well, maybe there's some nuance there, but yes, you should. It like goes down the rabbit hole. So my team has been down the rabbit hole many, many times, and we're very, very used to dealing with very specific use cases and very comfortable with high volumes of ice cold email, gelato in the summertime style email.
Thank you, everyone. So let's move to our questions. I did have a list of questions that were based on, obviously, Google and Yahoo updates. Then I had a part of general questions, but while we've been handling the previous parts of webinars, there was
so many questions.
Yeah, so many questions. Yeah, indeed, so many questions. And I selected several of them from the comment section that I considered like controversial and something that worth discussing. Let's start with Google questions. So if you go to FAQ at Google side, you will see that they specify.
Well, which FAQ? I mean, how many FAQs did they publish?
They're constantly updating. Yeah. So each time very painful question rises, they update it. So they state that as soon as you are considered as a bulk sender, that's all, you're a bulk sender, it's impossible to get rid of this status. This is something they tell. So what should a sender do in case he is considered as a bulk sender? Abandon this domain, start a new domain, suffer, pray, cry.
What is the issue with being a bulk sender?
Well, yeah, it's not like being a military veteran where you're always a veteran for life because you, by nature of having been in the military. I think that likely that designation, Yanatori, you might know more about this, is very fluid. On a day you send more than 5,000 emails, you're a bulk sender. On a day you send 5 emails, you're not a bulk sender. So it's just about what standard you're holding yourself to. And if really the rules about being a bulk sender versus not is the difference between you landing in the inbox and not, you probably have a bigger problem.
Yeah, it's not that. The reasons your emails are not landing in the inbox is not because you're a bulk sender. I mean, has anyone?
It's not like 4,999, you're good, and then you hit 5,000 and like everything. Like that's probably not.
Yeah, like Google has a $1 billion spam filter, right? Of at least a couple of 100 million. Okay, put it into it. It's not because you're sending 4,999 emails that they go, oh, everything's okay. One of the reasons as well, which is like the easiest reason why there is that number, which I'm so annoyed they put a number in the document. They should not have put a number. It was for the spam ratio. If you don't send enough emails, you're always going, if you send 100 emails and one person complains, you're already over that threshold. Yeah, so one of it was to be like, right? Okay, like, if you send 2 emails and one complains, you're at 50%. They're not going to put your emails in spam. It's $1 million spam filter. They've put a lot of money to make sure this is going to be okay. So that's one of the very basic reasons why there is a number there. Like, Benny, if you're sending emails for cold emailing clients and you are sending 30 million a month, you're over at like 50 emails a day, right? If I were to start sending everyone 50 emails a day and it's 50 different people, that at some point it's bulk sending. If I'm not personally writing out a message to Olga or Radek, then, because I'm not going to be writing you one, Benny, apparently, and Benny as well. If I need write any of those messages, Google's going to wait for me to get a reply back. And if I'm getting a 1%, it makes it very easy for them to figure out that there's some cold emailing or something that's not okay. How many people can I possibly meet at an event, right? So the numbers are not there to be like, if you say under, you have 100,000 people on your list and you cut them up in pieces, that then you're free to do whatever you want. It's not a jail-free card.
Also, I think that everyone here probably has a sense of how things like TikTok algorithms work. But very basically, what they do is you upload a video onto something like TikTok and you release it. And assuming that it passes basic decency filters that they have in place, they'll show it to 100 people, maybe, and they'll see how those people react. If a certain percentage of those share it, they'll go, okay, let's show it to 500 people, let's show it to 1,000 people. Certain number react. What happens if you look at friends who had a post that went viral? At a certain point, there's a local maximum where it'll get to like, 275,000 views and then stops. It's because the TikTok algorithm decided that that was the local maximum. So my hunch is the reason why they set a limit around 5,000 is they're doing something very similar inside their own system, where if you do a big wave of sends, they're showing it to a certain number of people. And if there's a certain amount of spam complaints, they won't show it to more people. And maybe internally that 5,000 number is a threshold that is low enough for a really serious sender to catch an issue early, but not such a high number that they're going to accidentally spam a huge audience with something that is potentially harmful. So I think there's probably some sort of internal calculus with Google. And as Yanatori said, I don't think there's any real magic to that number. Yeah. And I doubt that their systems are actually even counting in that way, in the way that we imagine they are, where it has a countdown timer that says 24. It's like that old show 24. Remember that show where like countdown 24 hours or whatever? It's like 24 and then it counts down to 0 and then it resets to 5,000 and then it's like, let's see if they hit it today. Like I doubt that like that's the way that their internal systems are organized.
I think generally this question comes from misunderstanding that people really consider that if you reach this number, oh, okay, you're a bulk sender, you will be, but you will be punished. No, it doesn't work like that. You will be punished anyway, even if you don't reach. Even if you're a bad sender, you will be punished. So after that, I would like to, Radek, I'm sorry. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, Radek had something to say. Let Radek speak.
You just actually summarized what I was supposed to say. Is so essentially, so Google is starting enforcement on the good practices that there are already for years, if not decades, right? And they started with bulk senders, as Yanatori mentioned, and Benny, in order to be able to actually, calculate some stuff and experiment with some stuff about the inbox placement on a significant volumes. So for those senders, and plus, if you are sending like 5K a day, 5,000 emails a day, then, first of all, you probably are doing things already well, but you might have a need for improvement. So probably you anyway are looking at those kind of good practices that will be enforced right now with the Google. You're already authenticated. You're observing your spam rates, because that's if you wouldn't be doing that, you wouldn't be inboxing anyway at that kind of volume. So let's not be afraid of being considered as a bulk sender. If we are bulk senders, then we are bulk senders, and it's our responsibility to actually do things right as the good practices show.
Also, I think I'm the only resident, like true, maybe Olga as well, cold email folks here. My team backstops the cold emailing for a handful of pretty large companies. None of them send more than 5,000 cold emails a day.
Yeah.
Maybe 4,000 cold emails a day, a little bit higher than 4,000 we see. But we're also talking about companies that have tremendous brand value. They get a pretty reasonably high number of interested replies. There's a lot of other things in place that make them pretty reputable, even if it's cold. So I think that at the point at which you're really asking yourself, well, I need to send 100,000 emails a day, how am I going to get it done? I think probably you need to start with the man in the mirror. You know,
Yeah,
you kind of need to be like, what am I doing? What am I using email for that this is the issue? Because on the flip side of this, and Yanatori and Radek deal with this more than I do at this stage. Just this morning, I talked to a company, an e-commerce brand that's having an email deliverability problem. Well, they send 1.5 million emails per week. They have a lot of customers. They have a lot of things going on in their business, and they're not sending a single cold email. So for them, they do need to go from a company that maybe when they started, they were only sending, 100,000 emails a week because they started with a big bang. But now they really do need to up their game. They need to work with someone like Yanatori to get everything perfectly in line. Maybe they need to work with my team. They need to start analyzing more detail the things they're doing, not because they're trying to whack the internet with cold emails at a crazy high volume to build some sort of thing. No, because they have a lot of customers and they're sending a lot of emails, and almost all those, the people they're emailing have a gmail.com because they're consumers. So Google also wants those people to come into line with what Radek said, the higher standards that they've been trying to get people to do for a while.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah,
guys.
and to your point, Benny.
Next question, we stopped.
Okay, I see it's very difficult to manage panel discussion with 3 speakers, 4 speakers. I'm doing my best. Sorry for any.
But we can talk forever if we didn't have a limit. Like you could just leave us here. And
There might be a specific delay on Radek's side, though. I'm not sure.
Maybe
why.
Yes, maybe this is delayed. Radek,
I'm sorry about that.
It's not that I'm an impolite person. Sorry. Okay, Radek. No, I can. Okay, let's go.
Let's move on.
Those updates. The first reaction that I see among customers is that, oh my gosh, we need to purchase as many domains as we can and separate our traffic again, not to be a bulk sender. Yes, I know, it's a pain. And based on this problematic question, how would you recommend generally to organize? So a person starts outreach. How would you recommend to organize number of domains, 1, 2, limits?
Don't ask Yanatori this question. I know what she's going to say.
I was going to say, let Benny answer first, and then I'll answer.
So the biggest senders in the world, like the absolute biggest senders in the world, like United Postal Service or something, in total, they have 2 domains they send from. They send like, I don't know how many emails they send, 1 billion emails or something. They literally have 1 domain, maybe 2 subdomains, maybe 3 in total. And they actually publish it on their website because you can find it, because they want you to know what is actually from UPS and not from some sort of scammer. So email number of domains doesn't really correlate to email volumes in any sort of meaningful way. In cold email world, people think multiple domains widens me out. It makes it so I can't get flagged. It saves me from exposure in all these different ways. I like, people aren't going to like this, and this usually gets me in trouble on the internet. We safely send 4,000 emails per day plus from 1 root domain cold. Do we use subdomains? Sure. Do we use 100 subdomains? No. Why? Because really solid email best practices, using Bouncer, getting rid of bounces, making sure that SPF, DMARC, DKIM are in place, actually A/B testing and trying to get healthy interested reply rates at low volumes before you increase the volume of sending, making sure increasing gradually, and all these things that sort of make sense mean that you don't need 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 different domains trying to manage and bounce between them. I understand why a lot of companies feel they need to do that, but it would be like, you want to get fit at the gym, do 1 rep on every single machine they have once a day. Would you probably get fit doing that? You probably would get fit doing that, but that's a really weird way to use the gym, right?
Yeah, people don't.
Okay,
I don't
yeah,
think
Tori,
people
what are your thoughts on it? I know we agree. I just want to know your thoughts.
Yeah. So on my end, it's not even at how many domains. So there's a lot of reasons why, like American Express has multiple subdomains, and you can probably guess why or like actual domains. Sorry, not subdomains. also subdomains. You can imagine why they're doing that, or AT&T or Verizon, who got sued for texting competitor, and then still making more money. The fine that they paid on texting, because there's deliverability in texting people that weren't their customers, was cheaper than the amount of money they made from doing that and stealing the customers from the competitors. I don't remember who it was. I named like 3 telecommunication companies, one of them from the US. When it comes to these things,
allegedly, you got it. Come on, you don't want to get sued, Yanatori. You have to.
But I mean, it's a fact. What am I going to get sued? That they got sued?
Well, I will say allegedly. I will say allegedly. I'm sure that
like the Republicans tried to sue Google last year, right? That's something interesting to dive into later.
That is really interesting. The politicians trying to bypass the spam filter.
Oh, actually, I'll answer the question using that example. Yeah. So the Republicans were complaining that their emails weren't landing in the inbox, and that the Democratic emails were landing in the inbox. Like, that's unfair. It's like, free speech and all that jazz. And Google was like, no, there's not a human Tinder swiping, emails in the inbox. And like, oh no, Republicans, ooh, spam. It's a machine. And the machine saw certain practices being in place. As a Canadian, I come to the US to go to Target. Okay. We like where Targets are gone. So when I go to Target, they get my email. And then months later, every time somebody has to vote for something, I get emails. I don't live in the US. I cannot vote. Stop emailing me. So that's a really easy example of why they get high spam complaints. So Google was like, you know what? You're suing us. We're going to create this group, and we're going to allow you to send 1,000 emails to a person. We won't stop you. You're going to bypass the spam filters. So you sign up to this group. You have a limit of 5 domains. They still gave them 5 domains per person that you could, like Yanatori, who wants to get voted in, I can use 5 different domains. I needed to have consent, and I needed to authenticate. Guess how many people signed up?
0. Yeah.
0. They would have been allowed to send as many emails, and they would have sent whatever they wanted, and it would have landed in the inbox. 0 people, because they couldn't prove consent, and they could have just said, yeah, we have consent, clean it out, let the bounces bounce, and then say, oh yeah, these people, it's an old list. They could have lied. How would Google, like, here's an Excel sheet with dates on it. No one did it. So people think that Google's $100 million spam filter here or more. Do you think that changing your domain but doing the exact same thing is going to have a different outcome? The problem is not the domain or how you're spreading yourself thin, is that you have a domain, you burn it, and instead of learning from that, you go and you do the exact same thing. Benny doesn't do that. When he sends 4,000 emails a day, if he sees anything go wrong or might go wrong,
you course correct
the problem before it's a problem. Well, of course, he knows now, so he doesn't have to fix anything, right? That's the difference. The different subdomains or different domains need to serve different purposes. You might want to do different strategies to see which one, so you can burn maybe a domain. Fine, go for it. But if you're going to do the exact same thing somewhere else, why are you expecting a different outcome? That is the problem with the multiple domains or subdomains.
And the other thing I'd like to add, not to harp on this too much, oftentimes, and we spoke about this, I think, on the last webinar we did, oftentimes you don't have an email deliverability problem. You actually have an email sendability problem. Because if you're asking me, how can United Postal Service or Biden for America or Trump for America send 1 million emails an hour? Well, let's not talk about the politicians, because that's weird. But how can an e-commerce brand send 1 million emails a day? Sephora send 1 million emails a day, or whatever they send, probably more. They have email systems that they rely on that let them send. They have permission to send. They have IP addresses that are properly warmed and maintained. They have their domain is in good standing, and they send. If you're doing cold email by nature, it means you're probably sending from a system that doesn't actually want you sending from there. And if that system's Google, you're lowering your sending volume and widening out across domains to try to evade Google's suspension and Google's sending filters. It's nothing to do with email deliverability. So again, oftentimes you have to look at yourself and say, okay, well, what am I doing that's violating the rules that are put in place? Because that's probably what's holding you back more so than email deliverability. But if email deliverability is a problem, that's different, right? Something's going to spam. Usually it's because something's wrong, and either you're doing something wrong or there's something wrong with the fundamentals of what you're doing. There are a lot of questions, Olga.
Yeah.
Jeez, it's like I feel like people were here like an hour and a half early asking all sorts of questions that were irrelevant to the earlier part.
Actually,
I
it
love
was like
this.
that. Yeah, it was like that.
We
Circling
got to
back
answer
to
all of them.
those- Yeah, circling back to those questions, there was one specific question that was related to email validation, and I thought that I needed to ask, considering the fact that we have Radek here. So a question not only to Radek, but probably Radek will be the first to answer. The question was the following. Sometimes validation can lead to as much as 30-40% of list being lost. Is it just normal or expected? So I asked the person if he means that after validation he got 30-40% of invalid, or both invalid and risky. He said both invalid and risky. So the question is, when you get a list, you validate it, what is the normal rate of contacts being lost that can indicate that your list was fine or was bad?
Normal. Everyone wants to be normal. Why do you want to be normal? You want to be exceptional. Am I the only American here? Yeah, Americans want to be exceptional. Maybe everyone else wants to be normal. I don't know.
I don't know if there, if there's a normal. It depends. It depends on the actually on the industries. Well, the undeliverables are like a no-brainer, right? Those are undeliverable invalid email addresses. So there's probably a question about the prospecting processes, and the quality of the prospecting processes, or the quality of the source of the leads, potential leads going on. The risky email addresses. So this is a tricky aspect. The risky, at least in our nomenclature, risky email addresses are usually the catch-all email addresses that are set up as a catch-all. So it correlates with also larger organizations that set up their environment as catch-all, or have some additional like anti-spam filters or relays in place that behaves this way. Again, it depends on what's the general quality of the lists. Let's say a list or our prospecting practices, because if it's not that bad, like if you don't have statistically many undeliverable email addresses, then, for example, I would stick to those risky email addresses. I would still send them, maybe send with caution, maybe observe actually the bounce rates to see, if I'm still kind of within the limits, acceptable limits, if it comes to bounce rates. But I wouldn't be I wouldn't, and there's still maybe a potential value of that kind of connection coming out of cold email that will happen, and it may be justified. The value might justify the risk that you're taking, the risk of getting finally a bounce. So while making, it's not like one size fits all, and there's no one strategy for all the senders out there. Sometimes it makes sense to be on the safe side and send only to deliverable email addresses, and then indeed you most likely will have, like in B2B space, if you're reaching out to big businesses, probably like 25-30% of email addresses might be catch-all. If you're using solution like, for example, Bouncer, where we do have ability to verify like catch-all email, deeply verified catch-all email addresses of Google and Microsoft, then probably you will have lower amount of those risky email addresses. You will have more confirmed deliverable email addresses. But yeah, in some cases you want to be on the safe side, especially if you're like going wider, and you still need to take care of your reputation. But if you are doing really good prospecting, then it might make sense to take the risk and send to risky email addresses. Well, categorized as risky. By the way, risky doesn't necessarily mean they're toxic. So those are, there's a risk of the emails. Some emails will be undelivered, but it doesn't mean that actually it will create additional risks on your business. There's another actually category of email addresses that we call toxic. This is maybe something for the for later discussion as well, what you can do. But
I think most importantly, guys, if you're not using something like Bouncer, just go set up an account and start using it immediately. Good email list hygienes are really important. Even if you don't change your behavior, you should know. If you're sending 5, 10, 15% of your emails to something that's not great, you know, like you should know. You should take it pretty seriously.
Yeah.
And you should go deep on all the information on Radix's website. The more you know about what the different statuses of emails are and what they mean, the better informed you'll be able to be to make a decision on, like, yeah, I'm okay with 5% of the emails I send being risky, or hey, this is my key target market. I can't not send to these people, but I'll be very cautious with it. Those are all acceptable business risks to take, and those aren't Radix company's responsibility. They're your responsibility, and Radix companies give you information. And by the way, the information that Radix company and tool gathers is automated. They're opening up little gateways on the internet and knocking on the door and being like, hey, do you guys accept emails to this address? And then they're just giving information back, and he's putting it neatly in a spreadsheet for you. So the more you know about it, the better, and the more likely it is that you can act properly. And then, as Radix said, we see it with like healthcare, for example. A lot of companies have what are called accept all, meaning they'll accept the email before they deliver it, and then they'll reject it if they can't deliver it. And you just have to be aware that you're going into an industry with a lot of gatekeepers. Does it surprise you that they also have a gatekeeper at the door to their just go to Pfizer's office building, upstate New York, and try to get in. Probably they're gonna check on you first. So that's the same kind of behavior that you're seeing with a lot of these email systems. But go set up a Bouncer account. Don't sit around.
It's so easy,
and
you
ask
can
questions
use it
about it.
You can use it for warm-up, because one of the columns provided, especially like for if you're doing cold emailing or not, is the provider column. So like at yanatori.com is using Google Suite, or at Email Console is using AWS. The warm-up, Google doesn't know that you send emails to Microsoft. Google wants to see the emails slowly go up at Google. So if you have let's say we're doing just some bigger numbers. I sent 500 emails today. 499 are like Google, and one of them is Hotmail, because I just randomly selected 500 people. And the next day I go to send 1,000 emails because I'm doing a warm-up. And this time I'm at 999 Hotmail and 1 Google. Well, Google doesn't really care. It went down fine. But Microsoft went from 1 email to 400, like to 499 or 999. That's a problem.
That's a great point.
Not a warm-up.
The other side of this that Yanatori is hinting at but not mentioning is that your email deliverability might have a specific problem with a specific provider. So if you download your bounce list from Reply and you compare that to the list that Radix provided from the cleaning, and you see, oh my gosh, 80% of these are Microsoft. Microsoft's rejecting me. That's really good information for you. Yeah. Because it might give you a path to worm your way out of a Microsoft problem, or maybe you need to suck it up and connect with a company like mine that will like go deep on specific things. Or you might find that there's just something, it's better for you in general to just avoid sending to Microsoft at all for your most important campaigns or whatever.
Yeah. And be mean a little bit. I know we all think our businesses are really cool and we can do great things, but like I think Benny, you were there when I gave that example. I had a cryptocurrency customer, simple example. The cryptocurrency just in Greece, they were targeting males between 25 and like 45, and they bought a list, which was fine. Well, not fine, but they bought a list of 30 million. Great. The only people who could sign up to this was people who had a Greek passport. If you know Greek people, we don't always hold Greek passports. We have a little paper and we just can go through the borders with no issue. And they bought 30 million. I don't know if you know how many citizens are in Greece. So I'll tell you, it's 10 million. There was a targeting problem. Therefore, the chances that I would pass it through Redux thing and there would be problems way higher, because they were just like Greek people and they're everywhere in the world. Sometimes the problem isn't necessarily that, the lists are bad or like Apollo is the problem. Maybe not everyone is your customer. And if you think you can just grab any email address because they might have some guy in IT that needs authentication services, you're not going to be able to perform well, because then the human part comes in, and the spam filters definitely care what the humans using the inbox think. And if they're not happy, Google's not happy, and then they're not happy with you. It's very, very simple. Not everyone is your customer. Like, all of you send emails. If I were to email every person on the planet which has a business and uses email, doesn't mean because you need my services that you're going to care about that email I sent. Specific people are going to work better if I were to decide to do cold emailing than everybody using MailChimp. That doesn't mean they have the money to pay, they care about what I have to say. So not everyone is your customer. And sometimes losing a bit of your list is better, because there's two options. You decide who gets the email, or the inbox does. That's what deliverability is at the end of the day. And I would rather remove an extra 10% to make sure the rest of my list gets the email than to kind of throw it in the air and end up like with social media, where you're expecting Instagram to really know, or LinkedIn to really know who my audience is. And they might not. So you guys decide. Clean the list and get the emails in, or don't clean the list as well, and Google decides.
Great words. Thank you very much.
It's again come down to also prospecting and sourcing the potential prospects. The natural thing after that, well, and doing it kind of empathetically, like really understanding who might benefit from you, who will get a value out of what you've got to offer, and probably focusing on them first, not going like, you know, spray and pray kind of deal, but be mindful, be empathetical, and know who would be happy of, or what's the probability that someone will be happy from hearing from you, and you will be able to deliver the value to them. So that's the first part, like prospecting. Then actually verifying the, you know, the list, cleaning the list from the deliverability perspective, meaning which email addresses are undeliverable and which are deliverable. Then maybe adding a point of toxicity check. We do have inside Bouncer a toxicity check. It's not that I want to like sell my solution. There are also others.
Sell it, baby. Sell it.
It's amazing. I extensively use it nonstop.
This is a pretty cool thing, because we've got an access to the database that actually have been built for folks like MailChimp, Oracle, to identify the bad senders. So this is a list of bad email addresses, like toxic email addresses, and you will get like potential, you know, privacy litigators there, but you will also get and toxic, you will find email addresses of people who are complainers, who actually hit report as spam when they get unsolicited email, or sometimes when they got a bad day. So known complainers will be there as well. You will have those like toxicity score of 3, but you will also get toxicity score 1, for example, for folks that actually whose email addresses are widely circulating, which means they get a ton of emails. So and then you're making a, you know, informative decisions whether you still want to send to those that get a lot of emails. But if you make that decision, then your message really has to, you know, be good, and their inboxes are busy. So in order to get their attention, in order to have those, you know, 15 seconds, 30 seconds for you to convince them in your
you do
email
long
that
emails, so I
worth.
need 5 minutes for them to read my emails.
Hire Benny in your list with Redact. That's what we're saying.
Guys, thank you very much for your expertise. We suddenly ran out of time.
No,
so I'm sorry.
There's so many questions.
I know,
guys.
I mean,
one thing I want to say is, you don't have to fear. You don't have to fear Google if you're doing like normal best practices stuff. 1, 2, be really careful about the advice you get, even the advice that we give you today, or you get from Olga, or you get from anywhere, because there's a really big difference in sending. It's sort of like health advice, where, you know, if you have a problem with your small intestine, like maybe don't eat that much raw vegetables, right? But eating raw vegetables is generally good advice. So but really focus on the basics. Almost every single webinar you'll hear that includes me or Radek or Olga or anything on the internet is like SPF, DMARC, and DKIM. They really matter. email authentication really matters. Sending to the right people really matters. Looking at your data carefully really matters. Don't do anything spammy. It really matters. Like, all these things really matter. And the more of those good stuff that you pile up, the less likely you are to have problems. And the more times you're asking yourself, how can I send 6,000 emails by Tuesday?
Might not be the best.
You know, you're
Unless-
probably not
Really
thinking about this right. If you said, I want to build up to be sending 6,000 emails
Yeah.
by, you know, Tuesday, 6 weeks from now, or 8 weeks from now, or 6 months from now, I'd be like, okay, sure. So that's the Benny advice. But you can reach me always at benny@senders.co. And Yanatori, you have a complicated email address that involves
It's
all sorts of
YT
things.
at emailconsole.com because no one knows how to write my name. They can barely
email
copy paste it.
Well, you got 2 N's
So
and 2
YT.
R's, 2 Y's, 2 A's. There's a lot
I
going
mean,
on.
Yana. Olga. Yana is a regular Eastern European name.
Yes, indeed.
So, like, the Tory part sounds American. So if you write it incorrectly, fine. If you're American, if not, copy paste it. But it's just 2 letters, and it's also an accept all email address because no one can write my name.
Smart.
But if you ever wondering if like something is good advice or not, the best exercise I've ever done is imagine the world has ended and like I've given you the torch and like you need to build a new spam filter, and you had to make like a list of rules to figure out which emails are good or bad. What rules would you come up with? Follow those rules. That's good enough.
I like that you think that people really spend that much time.
It's the end of the world. You have to do it. It's your job. I decided the zombie apocalypse. You have to create a spam filter. Create a bunch of rules that will help you filter out real emails from fake ones. What would you do? Want to check is it really PayPal? That's authentication. Does my customer, because Gmail doesn't care about you as a business, Gmail cares about Gmail users. That's the customer of Gmail. So is my Gmail customer happy in their inbox? No, they're getting spam. How can I stop it? So if your email falls in the category, Google's not happy. Are you selling something? Are you Louis Vuitton selling purses? And then COVID happens and then you're like, oh, we hope you're okay. The spam filters are going to be like, whoa, might not be Louis Vuitton anymore, right? Don't do that. You think hiding your identity is going to be a thing? No, we still know it's Google. Do you think they don't know it's you? There's tools online for security measures that helps you figure out if it's a similar domain as yours, like PayPal or PayPal with a 1 instead of the L. So if these tools exist, imagine how much data Google has. Yeah. It's not good enough.
And there are even tools that can tell if you changed your DNS records recently.
So
or if you added or removed a subdomain or something.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
Simple things.
World.
The biggest problems, and that's going to be a Redex thing.
The
99% of the problems is lists.
I'm looking forward to
my days
the
just
Yanatori
cleaning
email.
lists.
I'm looking forward to the Yanatori blog post about the apocalypse. It's
Oh no, it's not the apocalypse.
You're building the spam filter.
No, we should have told you. We told you for 20 years. SPF has existed since the 90s. Was available 90s. Okay, I'm old enough to have survived to be in the 90s. Okay, I'm not that young. Hopefully, I'll look young. But anyways, DKIM. A couple years later, DMARC. It's been over a decade. BIMI is going to slowly end up in the decade soon. Google was like, enough. We want to know that it's you. Spam rates. I love that people were complaining about, oh, my spam rates. Why do you want to have spam rates? The rate is too low. If it happens once because you did like a LinkedIn ad and then they're not going to kick you out. It's if you're consistently generating spam complaints. That's a problem. Of course, it's a problem. Google's not being mean by saying we don't want people to report emails as spam or we don't want to accept the emails that have high spam rates. That's it. Prove who you are, send emails to people who want them, and don't generate spam complaints. There's nothing new.
Olga, is there if people have more questions or further questions, can they ask underneath the LinkedIn post that your company made about this? And then they could tag either Radek, Yanatori, or me. Happy to answer any follow-up questions or give another spin on any of the questions you have.
Because we can
just
talk
tag us on
or
the
just ask
post.
us as well.
And you can also follow me on LinkedIn and probably follow Radek and Yanatori as well. I'm Benny Rubin, which is my name. Just go give me a follow, like and subscribe. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding. Like and subscribe, guys.
We're gonna hire Benny to do our marketing. Talk about us.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for your time and for your interest. And I was very happy to see you again. Radek, it was a pleasure to meet you.
Bye, everybody, thank you and happy sending.
Bye-bye. Guys, those who are still here, we have promised that we will select the most active person. First, I want to thank everyone who participated, and I really appreciate your questions. And our magician on backend selected Adish. Adish, you will be contacted. Thank you very much. And afterwards, I want to say a special thank you for our backend magician. It's Rima. She works in marketing department, and she's always here on backend for any webinar, and she is the one who makes it live actually. So thank you to her, and bye-bye, and have a great rest of the day. Bye.